Hello guys and welcome to today's video. In today's video we're going to be talking about Super Typhoon Surigae. It's still cranking along here in near the Philippines. As you can see, the cloud cover and the rain bands are truly, making their way on shore to the Philippine islands here. Um, the Philippines may not be getting a direct landfall, but they're sure are getting a lot of whipping rains and winds here. Obviously, not from what's in this red or black colors here near the center, but they are getting some pretty decent colors getting in here with some locally heavy rainfall and some pretty gusty winds here. So here are the latest of Surigae right now. It's located 13.6 north, 126.8 east. Maximum sustained winds is 125 knots, and the minimum central pressure is 932 millibars. So what's 125 knots? 125 knots to miles per hour. That's 145 miles per hour. We're gonna round that up to 145. So it's still a pretty potent typhoon here. And as you can see here from the Joint Typhoon Prediction Center, it's they do forecast to miss the Philippine Islands here and not make a direct landfall on the islands here. So this is good news, but the bad news is they're still gonna feel some nice effects from this system. So please be aware of flash flooding. There may be some surge coming in, depending on which way the wind direction is coming from. I'm sure they're still getting some pretty decent winds here on these eastern islands here. So please pay attention to that as we go out in time. Let's take a look at the satellite imagery here. If it loads, and as you can see, it's pretty much stalled out. It's slightly making that northward turn. So we should see this trend keep continuing as the days go on, as it heads towards the north and misty islands. As you can see, it's not as well defined as it was yesterday, and it went through an eye wall replacement cycle literally not that long ago. So it might have a chance to re-strengthen a little bit because there's still plenty of warm waters in this area before it gets to colder waters up here to the north of the Philippine Islands. So I do expect some strengthening to reoccur as time progresses. Okay, here is the look at the GFS model, and if I can get this correctly here. So this is 6 hours out, and let's take a look at the wind shear. We're only looking at 7 knots of wind shear, so that's indicative that this storm can re-strengthen once the eyewall replacement cycle completely finishes. So let's go 24 hours out, and as you can see, it does weaken a little bit, but like I said, it still has potential to regain its strength later on, and it's still dealing with only 7 knots of shear. And as you can see, these eastern islands are getting hammered with some of those oranges and yellows there. So they're going to be seeing some pretty nifty rainfall amounts as we go forward. And there you go. There's a little bit more strengthening there. It weakened a little bit, but then it re-strengthened a tad. That's not what I wanted. As you can see, it's dealing with 4 knots of wind shear, so it's still very favorable here for this to grow. 72 hours, it's still a typhoon, and we're at 957 millibars, and it's still dealing with 2 knots of shear. So the environment is still pretty good. 96 hours. It's starting to weaken now because now it's starting to get into the cooler waters of the Western Pacific. So 10 knots of shear here at 960 millibars. And this is where it's going to continue to trend weaker as time goes on because it's going to be getting into cooler waters here, which I will show here in a little bit. 971 is still a decent typhoon here. It's working with 31 knots of shear though, so it's getting sheared apart pretty much at this point. So we're not going to go past the 5-day mark, so we're just going to leave the rest to your imagination. So what's the European showing us here? 964 millibars, and it looks like, yeah, the eastern parts of the island here are going to get some rains and winds, obviously. 24 hours out, some of the eastern islands are still getting ravaged. and it looks like it's going to strengthen according to the European. It's a 946. Here's 48 hours out is at 937. So this is the European is being aggressive with this as we go out through time. 947 for the 3 days out. 957 I think that is for 4 days out, and then 963 for 5 days. And as you can see, it's on a weakening trend because of the cooler waters in this region. Speaking of cooler waters, here's a look at the sea surface temperatures, and it's pretty warm where it's at right now. We're at 29 and 28. So the waters are starting to cool down for it a little bit because it used to be in the 39s and the 29s, but now it's in the 28s and the 29s. And as it goes on through time, it's going to go through cooler and cooler water as time goes by. So give it about 6 or 7 days, and this thing is going to weaken pretty nicely. So it's definitely going to be a big ace producer in the Western Pacific still for a few more days to come before it starts to weaken a little bit. Anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys again in the next Surigae update, which I might have another one tonight. If not, it'll definitely be tomorrow. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later.